James, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting May the 28th, 2018. This week I'm continuing my theme in terms of deck selection and working with decks that I haven't touched or used in this space for some time. And just like I did last week, I'm honoring a suggestion made by one of my viewers of the channel. And so for this particular viewer, she had asked me if I would be willing to work once again with the Gypsy Witch cards, which I worked with a couple of weeks ago. As a result of seeing that, she asked if I would be willing to work with it more often. So I figured, since I'm taking suggestions, I'll go ahead and honor this one. So the deck that is assisting me for this week's reading is the Gypsy Witch cards. So I have the deck on hand. I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the cards. And as I'm shuffling the cards, I'm focusing on my usual intention for these weekly general readings, and that is, what do we need to know for the week ahead? Feeling one more time this way will be great. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. And fan the cards out. And when I work with this deck, I work with it similar as I do with Lenormand. So I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. That's 3, 4, and now we're looking for the final card, and I'm going to go with this one here. That's card 5. Okay, so now that I have my 5 cards selected, I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up, and I'll put that to one side. So now I have the 5 cards face down in front of me, and when I work with a line of 5 cards, I usually start with the middle card. For me, the middle card represents the central issue or something that we're being asked to focus on for the week ahead. And taking a look at this card, we have, okay, so here we have the Amour card. So Amour is a card that can represent love, it can represent infatuation, it can represent desire. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the image has Cupid, the angel Cupid, and Cupid is shooting arrows into our heart. So for me, that usually represents this idea about love, but usually with the sense of infatuation, right? Now, in another context, because I'm noting that the playing card insert for this particular card is the Queen of Spades, and so sometimes as a person, just like I would consider if I was using Lenormand, when I see a face card in a particular card, I usually sometimes offer that it could also represent a person, or maybe even keeping it more general, a particular approach to a situation. So the reason why I'm mentioning the Queen of Spades is because another possibility that I'm looking at with the arrows in the heart is I'm hearing the song You Give Love a Bad Name by Bon Jovi, and it starts with shot to the heart, and you're to blame, you give love a bad name. So that's what I'm hearing in my head. And with that, then the Queen of Spades usually can represent a woman who has gone through some sort of difficulty. It could represent a woman who is divorced or separated. So if I go with the more general approach, and this could just represent this idea about going through some sort of separation or split, that kind of thing, or some sort of emotional pain, right? If we go with the idea of about the lyrics to the song. So this could be one way or another. For some, could be focusing on maybe the sense of new love, you know, a new experience in that regard, and with it you're in the sense of infatuation, right, and desire for the other person. And in some instances, and for some people, it could be the total opposite, that maybe you've been kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, hurt by love, and so now you're kind of in that process of recovering. So that, you know, approach it one way or the other. And if that's the case, then the angel on the card could be a nod for you to work with your angels, if you work with angelic energy, to work with your angels on helping you heal your heart, because that's the expression that just came to me, healing for the heart. So it could be, what could you do that would help foster healing for your heart? So that's how I would look at Amore and the Queen of Spades. As I'm about to put the card down, another possibility with the Queen of Spades could be this idea on working on eliminating things from your life. For me, one of the things about spades, especially with the angel, can represent this idea about a divine idea or a spiritual way of thinking. In that sense, spades can represent elimination. So what might you need to focus on eliminating from your life, right? And with the heart, again, on the card, it could be something that has to do with emotions, feelings, or on an emotional level, right? So I would see that in addition to what I said previously about this card. So now when I work with these cards, that's the central message right now. As we look at the surrounding cards, the message could shift or change in any way or become more focused on one aspect of something that I've already talked about. So let's start looking at the surrounding cards, starting with the card on the far left. So opening the line up, okay. So here we have the Rider card. So for me, Rider is a card that can represent news and messages. So this could just be on the lookout for news and messages coming our way this week, because another aspect of Rider for me is something that arrives. So it could just be a matter of news and messages that are arriving this week, and so we're needing to pay attention to that. And as I'm suggesting that, as I look at the inset, we have another face card. And so here we have the Jack of Diamonds. And so for me, when we're talking about news or messages, the Jack of Diamonds is a messenger card. All jacks in playing cards for me represent messengers. And this one usually is sending a message that is valuable, like the information contained within the news or the message is of some value. So it could literally be news or messages about money. And if it's not about money in the literal sense, and it would just be some information that has some value with it. Now for me, this particular Jack is similar to, if you work with tarot, similar to the Hanged Man in tarot. And so for me, the chief message with the Hanged Man card is about having a change in outlook or a change in perspective. So if we consider the focusing card, and maybe with the idea about healing for the heart, or a person who's going through a process of separation or divorce, or working through a process of eliminating things from their life that they no longer need or want, then this card, going along with the Hangman aspect of it, could be, what would you need to be willing to sacrifice? What would you be willing to forfeit? What would you be willing to give up? Because the Hangman for me can represent a voluntary sacrifice. But the idea here too is like, maybe part of the process for you in changing your outlook would be just to see it differently, because the Hangman in traditional tarot is hanging upside down, and that represents being able to have a change in outlook and seeing the situation differently than how you have been seeing it. So would you be willing to offer yourself the possibility of a change in outlook or a change in perspective? So that's what I'm seeing. I'm taking a step back to see if there's anything else that I want to say about this card in the moment. I'm feeling like I'm complete with that, but I could come back to that. So that is the Rider and the Jack of Diamonds. So now let's take a look at the card in between the two. There's a theme here. And so now we have, in between, we have the Heart card. So now again, Heart kind of just mirrors all that kind of stuff I was riffing on the Heart in the Amor card, because Heart represents feelings, emotions. It represents our relationships to some degree, those people that we choose to relate to or relate with. So again, this card could be about love and romance for some, but for me it could also be this idea about moving into a space where you are doing things that you are passionate about, because one of the other meanings for me with this card is about passion and enthusiasm. So it could just be a matter of, you know, if you're in a space where you're experiencing new love and you're experiencing that sense of infatuation for the other person, then this card would fit that. If you are on the other side of that and you're working on eliminating things that are no longer serving and supporting you, and you're opening yourself up to a change in outlook, that might lead to this idea about something that you're passionate about or something that you're enthusiastic about. So that's how I would look at the Heart card in between. Now I will say this, because I'm talking about the playing card aspects of the reading this week. So one of the things that I want to offer is that whenever I see Two face cards usually can represent a relationship between two people. And so what could be happening here is that if we consider that the Queen of Spades is facing the Jack of Diamonds, this could be a conversation with another person. And it's very interesting because the Jack of Diamonds is not facing her. So is what the conversation, the discussion, is it falling on deaf ears? Now, what's happening in between is that usually the playing card insert in between can give us some idea of what the conversation could be about. So for some people, there may be a conversation needing to be had with a younger person. Jacks can sometimes represent younger people, and it's about money, possibly, because the Nine of Diamonds can represent extra money coming in. Here's another aspect too. It could also be that there may be a relationship possibly brewing between an older woman and a younger man, possibly, because the Nine of Diamonds in that regard can represent attraction. You know, and the Queen of Spades in this particular regard might be saying to the younger person, or the person on the receiving end of that message, that she really wants to see him. So that is another dynamic that I'm bringing into this week with the playing cards. If that doesn't resonate, then simply the Nine of Diamonds could just be a matter, if we go with the idea that the heart can represent passion and enthusiasm. It could be one of the ways that you, if you're searching for your idea of like, what am I passionate about? You're feeling like you've lost that sense of passion, then the Nine of Diamonds could be encouraging you to start with what it is that you feel an attraction to at this point in your life. So that's how I would look at those cards. So now let's take a look at the card on the other side of Amor. And I had a feeling this particular card was going to show up. So here we have the fish card. So the fish card for me can represent money. So that would be one aspect of it. So it could just be a matter of switching gears here, that there may be something said about money and cash flow and abundance, and that would make sense with what I talked about, this idea with the Nine of Diamonds being about extra money coming in. So it could just be somebody is wanting to create maybe another revenue stream or stream of income, and one of those ways would be, how can you think about creating a sense of extra money coming in? It could also be too, like maybe the extra money coming in is directly connected to something you are passionate about, right? So I'm seeing the idea like a passion project, right? So that would be one way to increase your cash flow if that it resonates with you. If we're talking about this idea about a relationship, then for me, the fish card can represent this idea about going deeper, right? So it could just be a matter of, for those people who identify with the new love, new infatuation with Amore, could be suggesting like, how can you get beyond that? How can you move beyond that? Or that your infatuation is going to become deeper or move beyond that, since it's coming after the previous card. And this would make sense too with the Four of Hearts as the insert, because for me the Four of Hearts represents this idea about intimacy, which means that people are getting emotionally closer. Could also represent this idea, it's called the marriage bed card for me. So with that, it can imply a deeper or more serious commitment. So, but it's about going beyond the surface. If we're talking about a relationship, how can we go deeper with that? But for some people, it could just be about also increasing cash flow. And it could just be a matter, again, with the marriage bed card, the Four of Hearts, could just be a matter of making sure that whatever it is, that you are seriously committed to the process for you. Now let's take a look at the last card, ending the line this week. Okay, so here we have the Lady card, right? So when I'm working with this particular deck, the Lady card is similar to the Lady in Lenormand. So for me, this represents a woman who is connected to the situation. So if you're a woman watching this, she could be you. If you're a man, then this could be a woman who's important or significant to you in regards to the situation. So there's that to consider. And the interesting thing is that she is not facing the other cards in the line. She's actually looking in the space where there are no future cards. So it could just be a matter of a woman who may play a role in how the situation resolves, but we're not entirely clear on what specifically that she has to offer. Now, the Two of Diamonds as the inset could just represent this idea about a successful relationship. I tend to look at diamonds as the suit for me that represents success and something that we're putting energy into. So somebody may be putting energy into a relationship with the idea and the intention that they want to see it successful. I'm seeing like they wanted to see it be, the way I'm seeing it is profitable, right? Because diamonds is also the suit that can represent money. So playing on the idea of that, they want to see a relationship be successful, but they wanted to see it profitable, right? And it could also be too that there may be money changing hands. I tend to look at this as this idea about payments being made. So it could just be saying too, like this person who's working on maybe bringing in some extra money, you know, cash flow, all the things I already talked about. Then it could just be a matter of providing something in which you get paid, right? So there is that to consider. So on that note, I will go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a profitable week. Take care.